Is this the dagger?
G'day guys, JB here, coming at you with another weekly review, this one for the 12th week of the 2023-24 NBA season. There were some player movements, there was some trade talks, there was some execution on the floor, that's for sure. There was some real instability around some places off it, and I can tell you now at the time of recording, there's a lot to cover in week 13. Getting late to it again in week 12, but again, can assure you there will be a lot to cover in week 13 when we get to it. I won't touch on that here. There's going to be plenty of it to chat about in the next video, but plenty of solid play, some good conversations around the league, some interesting conversations around the league, and of course there is still the mental stimulus of players potentially making a move and having an impact elsewhere. So without further ado, let's get into it. The review for week 12 of the 2023-24 NBA season, starting in the East, starting with Atlanta. A really nice week for them, bouncing back 3-1 on the week, 18-23 on the season. Defeated the Spurs, the Magic, and the Heat. Lost out to the Wizards. Dejounte Murray still doing his thing, 18.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 1 steal, 0.3 blocks on less than 3 turnovers. Shooting a little less to be desired though, 42.9 from the field, 26.1 from deep, 100% from the free throw line. And now the question really becomes around Atlanta, who will be the last man standing? Dejounte Murray's had a really good couple of weeks here, really established himself as the man on this team right now. But as we know, Trae Young has had a really good season. He seems to have underrated seasons, and it's purely for two factors. Number one, they don't win games. And number two, when the proverbial bucket of excrement has been thrown in the air and the ceiling fan has been switched on, he tends to not be about to try and clean up any of the mess that he has pretty much caused himself. It seems to be potentially another situation there in Atlanta as well. Really interesting to see how that team looks at the end of the All-Star break. It might be another season of, we'll just talk about it, but I have a feeling there's going to be a bit more action, and that those actions will certainly speak louder than any words that have caused two coaches to lose their jobs and multiple players to be traded. Over to Boston, they had a massive week as well, 3-1 record for them, sitting at 32-10 on the season, defeated the Rockets, the Raptors and the Spurs, lost out to the Nuggets in what was essentially an NBA Finals preview. We've seen them battle against OKC, we've now seen them battle against Denver. I would really like to see a massive battle against Minnesota just to really gauge how they look against the opposing conference. Jason Tatum with a so-so week, but still managing to be the leader of the team. 23 points, 8.8 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 0.8 steals, and 0.5 blocks, less than 2 turnovers. He will be efficient in that department, well, pretty much for the whole of his career. Very underrated as far as his effective ball use in hand there. Jason Tatum, 42% from the field, 31% from deep, 78.9 from the free throw line. Again, pretty interesting to see exactly how Tatum and Brown are going to continue to go as a unit. I think they are the best total combination in the league, and they are a perimeter combination, but you just look at the cohesion that they've got. I mean, the best 1-2 combo outside of them played them, and they beat them in Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. So I think that's really the yardstick for them right now. They are both on the perimeter, forwards that can play inside and out. I mean, Brown is a guard, Tatum is more of a forward. Brown stepping up into more of that forward position though, and rotating back towards the 2 this season. Going to be interesting to see how they continue to go. I thought Brown at one point had overtaken Tatum as the best player for the season on the team. I think Tatum has reclaimed that there, but it does speak volumes that your absolute leaders, 2 genuine top 10 players in the league this year, can just simply flick the switch one night, decide who is who. Add in all the supporting cast that we spoke about during the season. Boston, a really dangerous team. Brooklyn 1-2 on the week, 17-24 on the season, defeated the Lakers, lost to the Heat, and lost to the Blazers. Cam Thomas leading the way on offense. He's really returned as far as his offensive serve since getting back into the team. 21.3 points, 1.7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 0.3 steals, 1.3 turnovers a game, 49% or thereabouts from the field, 38.1 from deep, 92.3% from the free throw line. Spoke about that at the start of the season before he got injured. I just don't know how much a team can rely on a guy who only brings offense to the team. And we're not talking about, sitting in the corner and playing reliable defense on the other end. We're talking about a guy whose only genuine threat is scoring the basketball. and he's not the best player on the team. And he doesn't have that great a variety of an offensive skill set. I'd be really keen to see what Brooklyn do there. Mikal Bridges is still doing his thing, but they genuinely need to do a little bit more work. I'd like to think as well, Spencer Dinwiddie's apparently been holding himself back because he's not too impressed with the current situation on the squad, despite the fact he had 19 in that win against the Lakers. But you've got three guys there, Bridges, Dinwiddie, Thomas. You know, in a weaker Eastern Conference in years gone by, you're probably talking about a team that could have been in the first round. But right now, when you look at the depth in the East, they've really got to pick up their game. And again, I just don't know whether Cam Thomas is that guy that can be that number one option. Charlotte 1-2 on the week, 9-30 on the season. Defeated the Spurs, lost out to Miami and New Orleans. LaMelo Ball continuing to play his role. Good to see him back from injury and getting back up there with his numbers. 26 points, 5.3 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 2.7 steals a game, just over 3 turnovers. Does have that higher ball usage. He'll want to see a bit more production out of himself if they're the turnovers he's going to produce. 48.2 from the field, 35.5 from deep, 86.7 from the free throw line. LaMelo, again, just a guy that needs to stay on the basketball court and a guy that needs to stay healthy. He's clearly not in that same tier as Anthony Edwards. I could make a genuine case that I thought Anthony Edwards was the Rookie of the Year. I think you'll find if you go back to that video, I do make that case. And I'm pretty sure it was based about being on the floor, being available, and being the man. Same thing still applies here. But LaMelo back on the floor, healthy, being the man. Obviously in my next video I'll talk about a bit more about how he's going to be the man and certainly the impact that's going to have on him and how much he now needs to step up. But LaMelo just trying to do his thing. Charlotte continuing to be a bad side. There's just a lot of things there. I don't know what it is. There's a lot of these young teams that continue to feel that they don't need any veterans around them. And I think it really shows. With a side like Charlotte, who have no veterans around them whatsoever and just don't really produce anything beyond a whimper in the regular season. Chicago 2-1 on the week, 20-23. They've really started to pick things back and get towards 500. And for some reason, are starting to look like that team that they were a couple of seasons ago, where Chicago on their night can beat anybody and are genuinely a top 4 mix in the East. Right now, they're still looking to get to 500. But the Spurs and the Raptors lost out to the Cavs. Nikola Vucevic with a really strong week once again. 21.7 points, 13.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 0.7 steals, 1.3 blocks. Only the one turnover, and he's shooting 50% from the field. Would I like to see him better from the stripe and from deep if he's going to take him? Well, yeah, because you've got to make him. But that's a really good base for them to build around. Again, he's been really valuable. Kobe White's been valuable. Alex Caruso's been valuable. You're always going to try and get a bit out of DeMar DeRozan. And Zach LaVine, the conversation is still there. But I just wonder whether the team's starting to look at things now. They're starting to see how much bigs are impacting the game. Starting to see what can be done with a young guard in Kobe White. Maybe they are preparing for a bit of a move on. But they're going to keep Vooch around. Maybe they're going to keep Caruso around. Maybe they're going to keep Kobe White around. They're going to be able to build a little bit of a base to try and revamp themselves. Hopefully for the Bulls' sake it works out. Again, they keep DeMar DeRozan on his expiring contract and he's able to take a bit more of a back seat and really mentor Kobe White. I think that's a really good mentor for him. Andre Drummond and Vucevic still sticking around together. I think that's a good combination, particularly if they're going to complement each other. If you get rid of the narcissistic tendencies of this team, they get better. It's a matter of whether they're going to do that, though. Cleveland 2-0 on the week, 24-15 on the season, defeated Chicago and Milwaukee, and Donovan Mitchell once again. Another big week, continuing to produce. Again, one of the reasons I have him in genuine all-star contention, and particularly as a starter in the East. That's how good I think he has been playing this season. 32.5 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. That just screams that he's playing well. 50-40-90 splits, 57.5 from the field, 44.3 from deep, 91.7 from the line. 1.5 turnovers a game, so keeping the ball in his hands. 7 assists on the distribution, 2.5 steals. So he's getting some, picking some pockets as well. The only thing that hurt him not being my player of the week in the East is some guy in Philadelphia, who I will touch on a lot more later on in the video, and certainly touch on a lot more next week. A few factoids for everybody there, but would have been probably the player of the week. They probably needed to play one more game, but probably would have been player of the week in the East. Donovan Mitchell still continuing to be capable, and you've got to remember he's doing all of this with essentially Jarrett Allen as his second option, and you're looking on the other side of it. Max Strus is probably the only other guy chipping in when you really think about it. And he doesn't have Evan Mobley, a perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and he doesn't have Darius Garland, a borderline All-Star last year. So Mitchell continuing to step up. He's really shaking off the cobwebs, having a nice solid season. Detroit managed to pick up another win, their 4th of the season. lost another game, not that that's any news to anyone, 37 losses on the season. They did defeat Washington, who had made the comment, particularly Kyle Kuzma, a little while back, that you do not want to be the team that loses to them. And, well, there you go. Karma comes around the funny way, lost to Minnesota. Jaden Ivey, a really nice week for him, 28 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.5 blocks, 0.5 steals, 3.5 turnovers, not ideal, but 55% from the field, 46% from deep, trying to get it done. Detroit, genuinely still the worst team to ever exist in the history of the NBA. They've got their NBA Reddit post going from, hey, if 5 of them die, we have to have a redraft. And on the other side of it, you've got members of that same Reddit thread speaking about how, hey, why don't we just get our worst player to punch the best player and injure them in a chance to win? Yep, he's going to get suspended, and that's a good thing, kind of, not really, but it's going to allow us to compete against top teams, which I think would be really interesting when they bring up the example of Luka Doncic. You play them once a year at best. Probably not worth it there. They're still the worst team in the history of the NBA. Indiana 1-3 on the week, 24-18. Defeated Sacramento, lost to Denver, Utah, and Portland. Miles Turner with the best run of any player on that side. 17.8 points, 5.5 rebounds, 0.8 assists, 0.5 steals, and 1.8 blocks a game. 1.8 turnovers, efficient shooting splits with the big man, 52.1 from the field, 40% from deep, 76.5 from the free throw line. Ultimately, haven't really done that well with Pascal Siakam in the team, and many people are going to question the fact that they haven't done well with Siakam in the team, but I'm also going to turn around and point this out. He's just come from another franchise where he's been the man and run around in the same system his whole career. He's now been moved to Indiana. At some point he's had to go through Gary, Indiana. I can't imagine that's good for any athlete's psyche. And on top of that, you're going to put him with brand new teammates in a brand new situation where he's going to have to work a little bit harder, going to have to work a little bit smarter, and he's going to need to learn the offense. He's going to need to learn the chemistry. I don't think we can really bag the guy out, the fact that he's just joined the team. They'll pick up. They're having the best offensive rated season ever statistically. Again, it's the results that really speak for me in that situation there. They've got a bit of work to do on that front. Halliburton looking to get back into his groove. I think the Pacers are going to be fine. They're 6 games above 500, so they've still got a little bit of leeway. But I don't think it'll be much longer before you see them 10, 12 games above 500. For Miami, 2-2 in the week, 24-18 on the season. Very much in the same situation as Indiana. Defeated Charlotte and Brooklyn, lost to Toronto and Atlanta. Tyler Hero, their best player, 22.8 points, 7.8 rebounds, 2.8 assists on 0.5 steals. Had 3 turnovers a game, 46% from the field. That's not too bad for Tyler Hero. 36.8 from deep, 77.8 from the free throw line. I think he'd rather see that around the 38% and closer to the 85% from the stripe. Miami will be talked about a little bit further next week, obviously with confirmation of moving and things of that nature. But the real question is, what sort of team can they produce now? We're talking about the Bam Adebayo Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler still is showing times when it's close where he needs to be the man. No one's debating that. But there is just a little bit of heave-ho, way-o, hang on a second, who's really running the asylum here? And I think that's where they're stuck at the moment. They're stuck in that complex there where, well, who's the man? I think Bam established himself as the man in the NBA Finals last year. I don't know anyone that would debate that Bam Adebayo was not the Miami Heat's best player last year. That's really simple. The real question is, though, can they let go of the reins enough to let him lead them? Jimmy Butler can still be that second option. Jimmy Butler can play a Kobe role like Kobe played next to Shaq. He can play a Jamal Murray role like he does next to the Joker. He can play a Chris Middleton role very similar to how Middleton played next to Giannis in the championship year. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's getting that balance and getting that leadership, getting that chemistry and letting it all flow. All while I mentioned Tyler Hero here, who's still remaining as a third option and being paid like a number one guy. So the Heat just have a little bit of balancing to do on that front. Milwaukee 2-1 on the week, 28-13 on the season. Oh, won't we talk about them next week? Still sitting second in the East. Defeated Golden State and Sacramento, lost to Cleveland. Lillard, their best player on the week. 24.3 points, 4 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 1.3 steals on around 2 turnovers. The efficiency wasn't quite there, but he was converting at the stripe, so I can accept it a little bit there. 40.3 from the field, 34.8 from deep, and 93.8 from the free throw line. So the thing I don't get about Milwaukee, it's a conversation that's been driven the whole year. Are they underperforming? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? They were the number one seed last year. They got bounced in the first round. Okay, I get it. They were number one seed with a guy who had a very good case as the most valuable player in the league. For me, no one was responsible for leading their team to more wins last year than Giannis Antetokounmpo. He just didn't play enough games. And based on games played, I probably would have given it to Jason Tatum. Hindsight's 2020. Doesn't look great. I understand that. But it's a regular season award. And Milwaukee all of a sudden are the second best team in the East, with one of the deepest lineups in basketball, with arguably the most rounded player on the planet, with one of the best big game players, albeit without delivering results, which is a crazy way to put it. But Damian Lillard's a guy that you don't want to have the ball in his hands at the end of the game. He will make the shot. He's not afraid to take the shot. He's not afraid to put the ball up and try and score. And you've teed him up with Giannis, and you're still worried because they're the second best team in the East against a Boston side at this point, where people are starting to ask who's facing them in the finals. Bewildering that there seems to be questions being asked of Milwaukee right now. I don't see anyone other than Boston meeting them in the conference finals, and that includes Philadelphia right now. And don't worry, we'll get to them, and we'll certainly touch on them a bit more next week. I think Milwaukee are fine, which is bewildering with what I'm going to cover in next week's video based on everything that's happened in the last 24 hours at the time of recording. Over to New York, 3-1 on the week, a massive run for them, 25-17, so they are starting to try and close the gap a little bit here. They can sense an opportunity to snag that fourth seed in the East. Defeated Memphis, Houston and Washington. Okay, so you beat two of the 5 or 6 worst teams in the league, I get that. Defeat Houston. You know, they're starting to rise a little bit. You did lose out to Orlando, a team that will try and compete, but they've made a bit of a break on them. Randall, 22.8 points, 8.3 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 0.5 blocks. Not effective from the field when you look at 44% from the field overall, 32.3 from deep, 71.4 from the free throw line, nearly 4 turnovers a game. But the trade has paid off. They have gotten better as a defensive unit through Anunoby. They have gotten better offensively by streamlining their options. New York have made the right move. And they still have cap space. They still have an opportunity, if they want, to secure a huge free agent, whether that be by the trade period for a better contract, or whether that is in the actual free agency period. There's a guy in Philadelphia who's making his case for staying in Philly. He's not hurting his case if there's a reasonable chance he can move to a massive market and be the man. New York are doing all the right things right now. They're putting themselves into an okay spot towards a second round team, and they're making themselves look very viable in free agency. I never thought I'd say the Knicks were doing the right thing, but from everything I can gather, they certainly are. Orlando 1-3 on the week, 22-20. They are coming back to the pack, but again, we're talking about one of the youngest teams in the league here. Very well drilled defensively, just needs some refining offensively. Defeated the Knicks, ironically, after speaking about them just then. Lost to Oklahoma City, Atlanta and Philadelphia. Banchero still wanting to step out as the man. 20 points, 6.8 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 0.5 steals, 1 block, 2 turnovers. Young guy making strides, had a bad week. I could accept that. But it's the 40% from the field and the 8.3% from deep that ruins it. 70.4 from the free throw line can work on that. It's clear Banchero wants to step up as the man. But he can't do it sacrificing numbers and exerting energy to the point where he becomes ill-effective. This is why this even distribution amongst these younger teams until they really develop works. They've got some nice savvy veterans there that don't need to put up big numbers, but they can do enough to rest assured that, hey, you young guys are having an off night, I'm going to hit a shot. Joe Ingles a prime example. But for Orlando, I think they just need to get back into what was working for them a little bit. Yeah, there's still that question of who's going to be the man, and I think Banchero is going to be the man. But just develop for the next 6 months. Make that playing tournament, make that first round of the playoffs. Really show what you're about, know what you've got to work on, and go away in the postseason and really put in the effort to do it. Team that has put in the effort to do it and are really starting to rattle a lot of cages and probably worrying a few Milwaukee fans. And that's the Philadelphia 76ers. 3-0 on the week, 27-13 on the season. Defeated the Rockets, defeated the Nuggets, defeated the Magic, and they did it off the back of, for me, the best center in the NBA this season. He wasn't last year, and I stated my reasons for not having it last year. And that's because you don't bring the bar down, you exceed the bar, and that's when the status quo is changed, and that is when your respect is earned. That's when the MVP conversation comes in. And that is what Joel Embiid is doing right now, particularly from a centre standpoint. On the week, averaged 39.3 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.7 steals, 0.7 blocks, 2 turnovers a game. Shooting splits, ladies and gentlemen, of 56.9 from the field, 38.5 from deep, and 90.7 from the free throw line. Based on events that have happened in the last 48 hours, since December 1st, Embiid has averaged 40 points a game. And at the time of recording, he's averaging 36 points a game. The last centre to average those numbers was Wilt Chamberlain. A name that just keeps coming back. Embiid has been huge. I personally have him as the second best player this year. And I'd have him second in my MVP race, despite the dominance that he's showing. Now, I think he's probably going to win it at this stage, because it's very hard for the guy I have as the MVP to be getting any respect, despite the fact that everyone jumped up and realised last year, damn, this kid can play. But Embiid's having a monster year. He's sending him and Philadelphia up for success. Whether he gets that ultimate success in the city of brotherly love is going to be the next question. But Embiid is a freak right now, and Philadelphia are cruising. Toronto, on the other hand, are not. 1-2 on the week, 16-27 after losing Pascal Siakam and turning the team over to Scotty Barnes. Defeated Miami, lost to Chicago and Boston, but Scotty Barnes wanting to relish this opportunity. Some early jitters as the number one option. 20.3 points, 8.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 2.3 steals, 1.3 blocks. Continues to be one of the best all-around young players in the league, and will be one of the best all-around players in the league for another decade. But 5 turnovers a game is a stretch. Missing 4 of every 5 threes is a stretch. 54.3 from the field, I can't complain about that, 80% from the stripe. But now's going to be that really interesting time in Toronto as to where they go and what they do and how they pan out. Because the Raptors, for years, until, Vince Carter. After Vince Carter, there was a flash in the pan with Chris Bosh. Then you had the DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry periods, then the Kawhi Leonard periods, and we're just coming out of and I think we can say it now, we are fully out of that period there. Chris Boucher, from what I can gather, is the only remaining championship player from that team. But what they cannot afford to do is be playing in the Jalen Rose, Chris Bosh 05-06 Raptors, or the Jose Calderon, Andrea Bargnani era of the Raptors, because they seem to have one every decade and it doesn't end well. For Toronto, they've got to harness that, and they've got to find a reason to continue to get Scotty Barnes on the board, Jakob Poeltl as well. They're the guys they've got to work with. They're the guys they've got to get the job done. It's the only way that they're going to be able to keep the team relevant. It's the only way they're going to be able to continue to succeed, because if they continue to look like a team that is going to be 30-50, then they are just going to continue to wallow. Finally, over to Washington. 1-2 on the week, 7-33 on the season. Can make a case they are genuinely the worst team in the league. At least when you look at the star talent versus Detroit. And Detroit are on pace to be the all-time worst team. Defeated Atlanta, lost out to Detroit, ate some humble pie, a loss to the Knicks. Kyle Kuzma, 21.7 points, 6.7 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1.7 steals, 1.3 blocks on less than 2 turnovers. I can take that. I can't take 42.1% from the field, though. Washington, another basket case. Trade talks around them with Kyle Kuzma allegedly on the move to contenders. They don't know how long they're going to run the Jordan Poole experience for. Not that it's much of an experience. You wouldn't get it on MTV or anything of that nature. Really interesting times for Washington. They want to be thankful that Detroit exists. It's only fitting when you compare the two cities, though. That's all I'm saying. Player of the week, really simple for me. On the screen now, running around and dominating the league. As I mentioned, for Philadelphia, Joel Embiid, 39.3 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.7 steals, 0.7 blocks. Just on 2 turnovers there, 56.9 from the field, 38.5 from deep, 90.7 from the free throw line. Here's a guy that has worked out how to vary up his scoring. Here's a guy who can rebound. Here's a guy that's willing to pass. Here's a guy who's capable of defending. Here's a guy who's not settling for jump shots. Here's a guy who's keeping possession of the basketball, and a guy who's converting at the line. Who's suddenly raised the bar and said, you know what? Don't worry about handing me the MVP. I'm going to earn the MVP. It's not saying he's not a deserving 2-time winner, but he's certainly going to earn this one. He's going to back up his case. Philadelphia dominating, as you can see there. Just continuing to push through, get things done. They are clearly the third best team in the NBA this season. Third best team in the East, I should say. Not the third best team in the NBA, but certainly the third best team in the East. Looking at the top 10 in the East on the season so far. Avoiding the play-in tournament, the Celtics, the Bucks, the Sixers, the Cavs, the Knicks and the Pacers. As I said there, I think the Sixers are the third best team. Cleveland fighting for that fourth spread along with the Knicks and the Pacers, and I think that's pretty fitting. The Heat have a chance to be able to really mix it up with them. But they're going to have to really balance things out and get things sorted soon. For the Magic, again, it's a chance for them to get back into it, but I think right now they're just going through some teething problems here in their second run. Bit of a sophomore slump for this really young team that's got up and about. It'll be interesting to see how they look to recuperate. For the Bulls, they've managed to make a bit of a miracle run, as I said. They are starting to look like that team that for some reason was able to threaten every side 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden they're back doing it once again. And for the Hawks, they've had a really good week, so they've been rewarded. But I don't know how much more we are going to see out of them contending for at least the play-in tournament this season. Done with the East. Over to the West. We'll start with Dallas. 1-2 in the week, 24-18 on the season. Defeated New Orleans and lost to New Orleans, so split the mini-series there and lost out to the Lakers. No surprise, though, that some of these losses came with a form slump, certainly efficiency-wise, from Kyrie Irving. 29 points, 5.7 rebounds, 6.3 assists, 0.3 steals, 0.3 blocks, and 2 turnovers. Pretty good, till you consider the fact that it was 40.8 from the field and 32.1 from deep, not 50.8 from the field and 42.1 from deep. Said it for a long time now. Kyrie Irving, when he's on, when he's efficient, when his head's in the game, one of the best scoring point guards the league's ever seen. Here's a guy that averages above 25 a game and can put 50, 40, 90 splits on the board. Not afraid to hit big shots, not afraid to take big shots. But it's when that inefficiency strikes that he gets into a lot of trouble. And this is a prime example. Again, it just happens when you're a small player. There's nothing else to say about it. Sometimes you just get outmatched. But Dallas is digging along nicely, 24-18, continuing to be one of those top 5, top 6 teams. Luka still, getting in and out of form. He's been one of the 5 best players in the league this season. He's got to be pretty happy that he's got Kyrie next to him. I don't know whether Kyrie makes the All-Star game. He wouldn't be in my top 10. Again, my MVP voting is a real indication of who I have in my All-Star games. You've got to be responsible for wins. It's as simple as that. But Kyrie's made a case as a second option. One of the better second options for any team this season. Beyond, obviously, teams that evidently, for those that have followed anything I've spoken about, particularly on my Twitter, Justin_G_Bryan, when you've heard me talk about players that I think from 2 teams that have an all-star break, I don't think there's any issue with that. But Kyrie, genuinely one of the best second options, stepping up into that first role when need be. Denver 2-1 on the week, 29-14 on the season. Defeated Indiana, defeated Boston. Lost to Philadelphia, a great battle there between Embiid and the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Nikola Jokic. 28 points, 14.3 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, 0.7 blocks, 5 turnovers, not ideal, but he did shoot 67.3 from the field. 80% from the line. 3-pointers have taken a dip. Again, Denver are going to be a top 3 team. Denver can make a run to be a top 2, maybe a top seed. If Denver have home court advantage in the West, I think they win the West. And they have the advantage of the altitude, as silly as it sounds, playing in Denver. It's surprising that teams that have played in that city, from a basketball standpoint, have never had real success. Because to me, I would be getting the most cardio-intense team possible and running the floor and making teams chase us when we're at altitude, and certainly chasing us when we are at sea level, when we're near the ocean floor. I think Denver will be okay. They're 15 games above 500. They have to do a lot wrong to be 29 and 29. And they've got games up their sleeve if they want. Just plenty of time to get some rest into guys and get some rotations moving. Golden State lost both of their games on the week, 0-2, 18 and 22 on the week. Milwaukee and Memphis were their opponents. Jonathan Kuminga, their best player, 24.7 rebounds, 1 assist, 0.5 steals, 0.5 blocks, 1.5 turnovers, 52.8 from the field, 37.5 from deep, 100% from the free throw line. So good to see he's been picking up. Obviously, only played the 2 games. One of their assistant coaches passed away. There's not much more really to say in that circumstance surrounding Golden State. They had an assistant coach pass away. And from all reports, a really stand-up first-class guy. Very, very hard indeed to put any gauge on a team who lost a key member of staff. That's where I'll leave Golden State for the week. Houston 0-3 on the week, 19 and 21. So they've just had that little slip once again below 500. But they lost out, honestly, to some teams that are genuine benchmarks and real measuring sticks in Boston, Philadelphia, and New York. Şengün still having an okay season, 18.7 points, 9.7 rebounds, 4.7 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 3.5 turnovers, 45.8 and 30 and 25% from deep, not ideal. And I like my Big Ben shooting 70%. Got the 68.8 there from the free throw line. Just a slump for Houston. Again, I'm talking about a team, and again, I'll put my Rockets hat on from this standpoint here. We're talking about a team that wasn't worth chatting about the last 2 seasons. We're talking about a team who willingly had guys that would rather go to the rifle range, pose in gun stores, worry about what they're doing afterwards, not necessarily being the most stand-up individuals in their personal lives. And all of a sudden, we've got 2 people, one of them who was a championship-winning point guard and one of the alleged issues above the border, and another guy down in Memphis who was very much alleged to be a key cultural issue in Memphis, albeit harder to judge now when you look at how the injury list has been for the Grizzlies, but certainly some cultural issues that still stay there, and he's moved on. And they've just recognised a young guy who can ball, and I think that's the key too. They can't go away in situations like that where they're getting beat, where they're not looking like the team that can compete, and go, oh well, we'll take it on our veterans. No, they've still got to have belief in their young guys. Şengün and Green are those guys, and if they can continue to relay the belief in them, they're only going to get better as a team. 0-3 after the start of the season that they've had. Not angry, particularly when you look at the opponents doing what they can do. Clippers went 1-1 on the week, 26 and 14, so they're 12 games above 500 now. Still continuing to push. Defeated OKC, lost to Minnesota. Not a bad little spread to really gauge yourself against the rest of your conference competition. Paul George with another good week. He's really had a bit of a resurgence over the last month. 27 points, 5.5 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 steals, 0.5 blocks a game, 46.5 from the field, 40% from deep, 66.7 from the free throw line. Paul George, Kawhi, again, as I mentioned, we're really trading position as the number 1 guy on the team for the start of the season. No need to do that now. It's really clear Kawhi has been the man. But Paul George is still pinch hitting, and Paul George has still been an all-star level player himself. But when you look at the overawing that has happened, it's very hard at times to remember just exactly what he was doing at the start of the season. But he's had a really hot dip there. The Clippers seem to still be finding that balance, but they're really hitting their chemistry marks, and just the impact that Kawhi Leonard has had on this team by being healthy this year alone speaks volumes to exactly the kind of player he can be. You just wonder whether both guys have one more run left in them. Whether 16-17 Kawhi and whether 18-19 Paul George can make one more run, because if those two are together when it happens, It's going to be a really, really dangerous Clippers squad. For the Lakers, 2-2 in the week. They are still below 500, 21-22. Defeated the Thunder and the Mavericks. Lost out to the Jazz in Brooklyn. Another dominant week by Anthony Davis. 24 points, 13.5 rebounds, 7.8 assists, 1.8 steals, 2 blocks. Stat coming out today, no one has played more games over the last 12 months than Anthony Davis. Not bad for a guy who likes wearing street clothes. Does continue to prove the point, though, that you can't be the best player in the grandstand. Can't be the best player in the bleachers. And when you consider the fact that when Anthony Davis is on the floor from a two-way standpoint, he's arguably the best player in the NBA, it's very hard to argue that logic. Effective splits as well, 51.5 from the field, 81.3 from the free throw line, 2.5 turnovers a game. It's going to be there. The Lakers are talking about retooling. What a shock. They've talked about sacking the coach. What a shock. Again, really don't know why people were fascinated with the Lakers' moves in the off-season. Recruited a heap of guys who look very good in very ambitious situations. And it even looks like at times that they've got the wrong options from the opposite numbers there. So we'll see what the Lakers can do. There'll be some sort of coup at some stage, and everyone will think to put them over the hump. But when you're halfway through the season and you're only at 500 and you've got opponents that are legitimately in either conference close to 20 games plus ahead of 500, you've got a lot of tail chasing to do. A lot of tail chasing to do. And I know it's a matter of being healthy when it matters. That's why they made the conference finals last year. But let's be real. They're a long way back. They're an older team. Father Time's undefeated. Doesn't matter what anybody says. Father Time's undefeated. Memphis, 1-2 on the week, 15-26 on the season. Defeated Golden State, lost to New York and Minnesota. Vincent Williams Jr., 17 points, 7.3 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 2.3 steals and a block. Really not bad if it was a third option on the team. 3.2 turnovers. It's unfortunate at the moment he is close to their second option. 43.8 from the field, making a third of his threes, and 85 out of 100 from the free throw line. Memphis again, they're just going to be a team that's waiting for the next 6 weeks to pass with injuries. Once they pass through these injuries, it's going to be a bit of a different scenario. Don't know exactly how it looks, but it's going to be a different scenario. Just when I thought they might have been a team that was going to break 500. Just when I thought they were going to be a team that might be able to sneak into the 500 mark and really make a run. Just not happening through injuries. Memphis pretty much riding the season off, but still, if they're going to be able to blood a couple of young players through there and make them look a little better, more power to them. I don't know anyone that's going to be against that. Minnesota, a really nice week for them. 3-0, cracking the 30-win mark, 11 losses on the season. Defeated the Clippers, the Pistons, and the Grizzlies. Anthony Edwards, really nice week for him. Would have liked to see a little bit more with that outside shooting and a bit more efficiency, but we can get to that in a second. 29.3 points, 6.3 rebounds, 6.3 assists, and 1 steal a game. Of course, the question overhangs for the last 24 hours at the time of recording. I'll get to that next week. 52.5 from the field for Edwards, 90.9 from the free throw line. My big thing here that a lot of people have forgotten about is that Anthony Edwards has bunnies for legs. That guy can jump out of the gym. He can take off from anywhere. People seem to forget the first year and a half of Anthony, or certainly the first year and a half of Anthony Edwards' career, he was flying at everybody. And then all of a sudden he took a bit of a step back because teams picked up on him and forced him to work on his outside game. And he was quoted, as saying, I can't just run in and attack the rim all the time with guys at the rim. People were whinging and that weren't getting highlights in that. Well, he's had 2 highlights in the last week, a week and a bit, which have been sensational stuff. Just showing the athleticism he still has. But it shows the rounded game that he's also developed. Because he's able to now get players out on the perimeter that are closing out to him, that are forcing him to, I'm going to have to drive by this guy. Can't get a jump shot up. And he's still got that athleticism. If he's able to continue to harness there, again, I think he's been one of the 2 best shooting guards in the league this year. And it's the fact that he's been able to round off his game that's made him such a better player, and certainly what's made him that number 1 option in Minnesota. So as much as everyone wants to talk about the highlights, I think you've got to respect the evolution of Edwards' game, that is almost a secondary option to him now, but one that he can very much keep in the bank. New Orleans, they're quietly sneaking up the seedings, and again, just trying to make a bit of noise. 2-2 on the week, 25-18 on the season. Defeated Dallas and Charlotte, also lost out to Dallas, splitting the mini-series 1-1. and lost out to the Suns as well. Jordan Hawkins, really nice week for him, 19.3 points, 3.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1 steal a game, less than 2 turnovers, 56.5 from the field, 51.6 from deep, 75% from the free throw line. Now, this is the second week in a row for New Orleans where a guy hasn't cracked 20 a game to be the man. That's a positive sign. It's even more of a positive sign that it's not Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson. There's a lot of talented young guys and athletic freaks in New Orleans. They just don't necessarily have to shine when you've got Zion and Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. And to an extent, Jonas Valanciunas. But if these young guys are going to be able to be, sneaking 18, 19 points a game, New Orleans are going to win games, and they're going to cause some issues for teams that really aren't ready for them. You've got to remember, this New Orleans team made the playoffs a couple of years ago. Had a bad run with injuries last year. Of course they weren't going to make it. Very interesting to see how they continue to go, but, a team that's probably going to shock a few and might steal a top 6 spot in the conference. I wouldn't want to necessarily run into them. Over to OKC, one of the best teams in the league, one of the 5 championship contenders for me, and one of the 3 contenders out of the East. 2-2 on the week, 28-13 on the season. Wins to Orlando and Utah, losses to the Lakers against both Los Angeles teams, I should say, Lakers and the Clippers. SGA, another good week, 27.8 points, 4.3 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 1.3 steals, 1.3 blocks, less than 3 turnovers a game. A quiet week, he's getting it done on both ends. 51.4 from the field, 90.5 from the stripe. Not much more that needs to be said. 7.1 from deep was a bit ordinary. When you're missing 93 of 100, it's not a great look. But SGA, for me, has still been the MVP of the league. He's been the best 2-guard in the league. And he continues to lead one of the most dynamic offensive teams in the league. And they're getting wins. And they've got draft stocks. And no one's old. And they don't need veterans. Really unique blend of talent here. Sam Presti doing it once again. Obviously, the other news that came out about OKC was the dropping of the charges on Josh Giddey. Really one that I don't think anyone wants to weigh into in regards to that situation there. But it'll be very interesting to see as well how the team now responds and how Giddey responds now that has been dropped, and if he's able to put that behind him. OKC could be a very interesting team. 28-13, 15 games above. I would not be shocked to see them closer to 55 wins this season than the late 40s that I put them in at the start. Phoenix 3-0 on the week, 23-18 on the season. Wins to Portland, Sacramento, New Orleans. They're broken above 500. They're not well down wallowing with the Lakers like I thought they may continue to do. And a big part of that, while he wasn't the player that the NBA selected as the player of the week, he's the guy I thought was the player of the week. That was Devin Booker. 34 points, 4.7 rebounds, 7.7 assists, 1 turnover a game. 56.1 from the field, 40% from deep, 95.2 from the free throw line. Devin Booker is the most valuable player on the Suns team. I think Kevin Durant has been the best player on the Suns team, but their most valuable player has been Devin Booker. His results continue to speak that truth. Hey, we need you to be point guard tonight. Great, here's 7 to 10 assists with high offensive production. Hey, we need you to score tonight. Great. I'm going for it. This is a guy who had 50. Here's a guy that had 50 here's a guy that's had 50 in the last week and a half, and because of the historic performances of 2 guys, it's not being talked about. Phoenix 3-0 on the week, 23-18. They're above 5. They're 5 above 500. Kevin Durant is firing, and Devin Booker's firing as well. And Bradley Beal seems to be going okay. They are going to be a competitor for that 6th seed, sitting there in the Western Conference. There's no doubt about it. Portland got a couple of wins on the board as well. 2-1 on the week, 12-29 on the season isn't ideal. But they defeated the Nets and they defeated the Pacers, lost out to Phoenix, as I mentioned. Scoot Henderson with a really solid week to an extent. 16.7 points, 4 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 1 steal, 0.3 blocks. Genuine case he's the 3rd best rookie this year, which says a lot, because I don't think he or Brandon Miller should be in the NBA right now. And when you look at 39% from the field, it makes a lot of sense. 36.4 from deep, 87.5 from the free throw line. I love the idea that these guys can come in and make generational money And if they're ready to come into the league, they should be coming in and making generational money. But if you're not ready and you want to make the most of your career so you can continue to make more and more generational money. I mean, these guys are entering the league, and by the time they retire, they've got a chance to have earned $1 billion in salary. That's the way the salary cap's growing, okay? And these guys are wanting to rush in early to do it, not being able to perform, and not having a developed game. It completely changes how much money you're going to make. And I understand there's caps on NIL money, and I get that NIL money isn't the be-all, end-all, but more guys are playing for longer than ever before. Player get to 35, 36, and you'd be like, damn, he's nearly done. That doesn't happen anymore. A guy gets to 35, 36, he's still putting 25, 30 points a night up, such as the way the game is played. There's no need to worry about getting a contract quickly, because guys are playing 18, 19, 20 years more than ever now, and they're going to continue to play 18, 19, 20 years more than ever now. And you're going to sign a couple of big contracts throughout your career, 4 years, 5-year contracts, 4-year, 5-year contracts. Off your rookie deal, you're going to get 3 of them. Why wouldn't you come in and realistically be the best player you can to max out the rookie deal, to max out your first unrestricted signing, and absolutely pack out your unrestricted free agency contracts? Great week by Scoot. I'm glad he's performing. But it makes no sense to me in a sport like basketball, or particularly in the NBA, where you wouldn't want to just be the best player to come in and make the most money. Just an opinion. Sacramento, they had a really bad week, 0-3, now 23-18, so they are sitting around that Phoenix mark. Lost out to Milwaukee, lost out to the Suns, and did lose out to the Pacers as well. No surprise who I thought their best player was, and it's only fitting because guess what? They're a better team when he's the number one man. Domantas Sabonis. 21, 12, and 12. Not rounded actually, they're the numbers. 21, 12, and 12. 0.3 steals and a block. Less than 3 turnovers. 76.5 from the field, 66.7 from deep. Why is he not your first option? Sacramento are going to waste this light the beam momentum because someone's a little disgruntled that they're running with the big man instead of the guy who won Clutch Player of the Year. Well, he wasn't very clutch in Game 7. I know he's a young guy, but don't be running around bragging about being the Clutch Player of the Year and being the man when you couldn't saddle up better than Harrison Barnes on the bike in that game. Sabonis is the man in Sacramento. I don't care what anyone tells me. I make a case he's been the 3rd best center in the league this year. They run better as a team when Sabonis is controlling the ball. As Shaq once said, when the big dog don't guard the yard don't get guarded. Sabonis is the man. Give him the ball, let him run the offense. Spurs lost all their games. They're 7-34. They still need more veterans. Lost to the Bulls, the Hawks, and the Celtics. And the Hornets. That's not ideal. Trey Jones, their best player. That is a sentence I should not be saying at any point. Had a nice week, to be fair. 15.3 points, 4 rebounds, 7.8 assists, 1.5 steals, less than 2 turnovers, 50-40-90 splits. In fact, more 55-45-100 splits. 56.1 from the field, 46.7 from deep. But they're very thankful there are poorer teams in the league than them, such as Washington and Detroit. And I'm telling you now, and I will continue to say it, this team is 15 wins better as a squad with veterans. They could be a 500 team right now, in my opinion, with veterans. Glad Trey Jones had a good week, but they're wasting this opportunity right now. And the fact that Wemby isn't just sitting here averaging 22-10 or 25-10 with 4 blocks a game and running away with the Rookie of the Year like he should be, ridiculous. Can't believe the Spurs are wasting a generational opportunity like this. Finally for the Jazz, they're continuing to plug along. They're getting the wins and they're causing a stir. 2-1 on the week, 22-21 on the season. Defeated the Lakers and the Pacers. Lost out to Oklahoma City. Tough for me to pick a player of the week. I did go with Lauri Markkanen, and you could have really split hairs there. But you've got to look at the efficiency on the week. 29 points, 9.7 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 0.3 blocks, less than a turnover a game. 56.8 from the field, 50% from deep, and 93.8 from the free throw line. And the absolute best comment that I've heard or compliment that I've heard for Lauri Markkanen ever in his career came from Rick Carlisle over the last week when he said the big thing in Dallas that they wanted to do was to draft Markkanen because they'd never seen a rawer, younger version of Dirk in their life. And Markkanen's bounced around the league a heap. Thought he was going to be a saviour at the Bulls, not used. Thought he was going to be okay at the Cavs, not used. Part of a trade piece for Mitchell. He'd look pretty good next to Donovan Mitchell right now. I'm just saying, I can't imagine Donovan Mitchell would say no to having this guy on the team. But now he's really established himself in Utah and he continues to make a run. He may very well be an all-star this season. That's the level of ability this guy's had. That's the level of performance this guy's had. Utah above 500. They've just turned the Jets on like they did to start last season. They've done it at a different time. Clarkson's playing well. You know, you got someone like a Walker Kessler who is set to be part of the 28-man pool for Team USA. Not much more the Jazz need right now. They are just getting things done and really causing a stir because when you look at it, it's the Sacramentos of the world that don't want to face them. It's Phoenix if they're feeling a little too confident. It's New Orleans trying to make a run. It's the Lakers who don't want to fall, in a creek without a paddle. It's Golden State if they're trying to regain some momentum. It's Houston if they don't want to be on a slump. They could cause a lot of issues for a lot of teams right now, and I don't think people realise it. But they are doing some genuine damage there. Player of the week in the West shouldn't be too much of a shock when I reveal this guy. Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, 34 points, 4.7 rebounds, 7.7 assists, or 1 turnover a game. Those 50-40-90 splits. Again, playing as one of the best combo guards in the league this year. If you need him to play point, as effective as any point in the league. Need him to play the 2, back making a case as the best 2 guard in the league. This is a guy that was All-NBA first team 2 years ago. People acting like he's no superstar and he's not this, he's not that. Was the best player in the Phoenix team in the NBA Finals. Led them to the NBA Finals. Haven't been there since. Haven't looked like a good team when he hasn't been in this year. There just seems to be a level of disrespect for Devin Booker. I've never understood it. But he just continues to get things done. He just continues to produce. Phoenix need to hurry up and do something because if that man walked in free agency, I wouldn't want to be the team that lost out to him. He's going to make everybody pay. And he's just on a massive run right now. For Phoenix, it's really good to see. I think he's just silencing a lot of critics. Playing some really good basketball. Was my player of the week. In the West, finally, we'll go to the top 10 of the West. Best team out there, the Timberwolves, the Thunder, the Nuggets. They're still the 3 for me. The Clippers at 4, they might make a run. They're in that second tier. I think your next tier out there is certainly the Pelicans, the Mavericks, and the Suns right now. Kings might scrape in there, but it depends who they try and give the ball to. Then you've got the Jazz just sitting above the Lakers. And don't be shocked if you see the Lakers and Houston trade that spot for a while yet to go. Anyway, guys, that's been me for my wrap for Week 12 of the 2023-24 NBA season. Didn't cover some particular topics in this one, but rest assured we're going to be covering them in the Week 13 review as well. Thanks for tuning in, guys. That's been me. I'm out.